Yesterday, CJ Pearson was on Roland Martin's show. Reese, you were on there as well too. CJ Pearson is an 18-year-old black conservative. People said lay off him before he was 18 because they felt like you're being too hard on a child. He's now 18. I believe, if I have this right, he was going to Howard University, but he left Howard University. Now he's at the University of Alabama. And he came on Roland Martin's show, and it was a bloodbath. It was embarrassing. I know he's only 18 years old, but he has put himself in this political realm or trying to be a political commentator. It was just an hour and a half of him being exposed. And this is why they're afraid to go on black media, a lot of these black conservatives. Jane Elliott, the icon herself, who has done so much work around race, was on there as well too, and really saying, like, listen, you're lost. You think you know, but you don't. But there's two moments I want to speak to. One of the several moments of CJ Pearson not being able to ask a basic question about voter suppression in Georgia, and then Reese's response. Play this first clip here.
Why y'all are getting rid of almost 3/4 of all ballot drop boxes? Those were secure.
That was the thing before COVID. Like,
no, those were secure.
But they literally were not a thing in commonplace before COVID. So why do we still need them?
Actually, hold up. In Georgia, they were put into place by the Republican legislature, signed by Republican governor. But now they're bad?
I'm saying that before COVID, they were not mainstream. They were not commonplace.
Are we still in COVID?
Well, we have a vaccine now.
Are we still in COVID?
I'm outside.
Are we still in COVID?
We have a vaccine.
Are we still in a COVID epidemic? Yes or no?
Go get your shot, Roland.
Like I say, see, this is the game right here. This is the game. This is the game, Greg. This is the game that black conservatives like CJ play.
So the brother couldn't even admit that we're still in a pandemic. And mind you, in Georgia, the vaccination rates are low, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons. And what CJ also doesn't know is that they've decreased drop boxes in predominantly black areas, but not in the white areas, whatever. This goes on for an hour. I mean, it is a bloodbath. This is the reason why Candace Owens would never sit down with Roland Martin, or Herschel Walker, if he does run, would never, with Roland Martin, myself, Karen Hunter, Joyanne, they would just be afraid, right? But then, Reese, you come in and bring up a really important point. And I just wanted to play this and talk about it.
All of these black Republicans like CJ stood out there talking about stop the steal when they were specifically saying it was black voters who stole this election.
Well, you know, some of the best foot soldiers of white supremacy are black people. And at the end of the day, though, what I will say is everybody gets their N-word wake-up call. That's black people, that's Asian people, that's Latino people. Everybody gets it except for white people. And to be honest, poor white people get it too when they're getting their leg chopped off because their rural farms or their rural hospitals have been shut down and they got diabetes. That's that N-word wake-up call, okay? And so you don't have to choose to be oppressed, DJ. And I applaud you. I think you're doing well, you know, given the fact that you have an agenda for why you're on the show. And I think you're definitely handling that agenda. But deep down inside, you have to know that N-word wake-up call is coming to you one day. You in Alabama. It's going to come to you.
This was so important to me, right? Because let's talk about the N-word wake-up call for a minute. I just love that term, Reese. Diamond and Silk got it. Once they got fired from Fox News, they were calling Fox News racist. Stacey Dash got it. Stacey Dash literally did an apology a couple months ago. Omarosa got it. She got fired.
She was a dog, remember?
Right, yeah, he called her a dog, right? And Herman Cain literally lost his life. And let's even go beyond politics. People who try to divorce themselves from blackness. O.J. Simpson got it. O.J. Simpson allegedly said, I'm not black, I'm O.J. And he found out what was really going on. Then he wanted to come back home. That N-word wake-up call is real. And I was so happy because this brother's 18 years old. And there's no way I should have been a political commentator at 18. There's no way that I should have been thinking. I would never have been that arrogant to think that. But that N-word wake-up call is so real, and you see it over. And eventually, Candace Owens is going to get it.
Yeah.
Eventually, Herschel Walker, if he decides to get in politics, eventually, if he decides to be a random, once upon a time, talk about stuff on Fox News, maybe not. But it does eventually come. And if you dodge it like Clarence Thomas, hooray for you. But for many of them, it comes back around. And that was so smart. That was so smart that you pointed that out, Reese. I just wanted you to, if you could just expound on that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is that people think that they're exempt because maybe of their mindset. I mean, CJ said he doesn't choose to be oppressed. That's not
Right.
a choice. What are you talking about? But
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of it was he was gaslighting. I mean, he has a brand. He's stuck to his talking points. He's stuck on his brand. So I didn't really take him too seriously. That's why I was kind of humored by the conversation because
You were laughing.
you can tell that I can see in his eyes he was processing, but
Yeah.
he's there for a reason. And that's unfortunately the problem with this podcast generation that we have, where you don't have people that are really about speaking their true opinion. They're not about taking in information and then responding to the information that they're hearing. They're about staying on message. And that's what he was doing. And so that's why I said, I think deep down inside, that N-word wake-up call is coming. He probably has had it a couple of times. Or
Right.
he could just be super delusional. But I said it's not just even a black thing, because a
It's
lot of
not.
people, that's how you call people of color,
Yeah.
right? People of color, everybody is the other from whiteness. And so you may not get a black person's N-word wake-up call, but you're going to get your version of the N-word wake-up call. And I would say a more vulgar way. But I was on Roland. He doesn't use the N-word, so I respected that. Okay, if it was just me, I would have said the full thing. But at the end of the day, everybody gets it. Everybody gets it. And it comes as a great shock to them. And I'm not going to use recent examples because I think everybody who's black can fill in the blank on what I mean by everybody gets it. I'll use a less current example. When Donald Trump came down that elevator and said that Mexicans were bringing drugs and they're rapists, that was the N-word wake-up call. Because you would think, oh, wow, somebody that racist, he's sitting up there talking about this, that, and the other. That's when you see that we all N-words one way or another at some point in time. Not all at the same time, not in every situation, but at some point in time that catches up to you, because whiteness is the prevailing power in this country. We have our own power. That's why I wasn't really feeling what Jane Elliott was talking about, like give up black. Okay, white people give up white and I give up black. Until then, I'm black and I'm proud. Okay, I ain't gonna just because I know that's what your shtick is, and I respect that, but I'm not gonna veer from that because you are expert in what you do. But my whole point is that is the power, and we have to fight against that. We have to harness our own power, but let's just be real. We still have that, that overarching supremacy that we're all pushing back against. Even some white people are pushing back against it.
Poor white
like
folks,
Jane. Yeah. And some white people are buying into
Tim
it
Wise.
at their own peril. Yes.
Right.
So that's why I said it's really universal, but it's just that people don't recognize it for what it is until it hits them. That's when they recognize it.
David, when people get that N-word wake-up call, when maybe CJ Pearson, when he's 24, 25, he'll say, oh my gosh, I was young. And do we open them back? Do we let them back in with open arms? Do we say, well, gosh, I can give an example too. I'll give you an example. Bill Cosby. Remember when Bill Cosby was saying, pull your pants up, don't name your kid Shaniqua, don't do this, don't do that. You got to do better. Just be the right kind of person. Then he's screaming racism when he has charges put against him. But you were the pound cake speech. You were shaming black folks for a name like Muhammad. And that was really weird that he even brought up that name. I was like, okay, whatever. But Bill Cosby got it.
The most common name in the world, by the way. Yeah.
Well, I'm like, okay, Mr. Cosby, but Mr. Cosby got it. But David, your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm totally with you and Reese on the N-word wake-up moment. It comes for different people and different places at different times, and not just, like you said, Reese, not just black folks. I have a different thought about CJ Pearson, which is this. I want to make two important caveats. Number one, like you said at the top, Clay, I was one of those people. I don't like to engage with people when they're children. I would have never engaged with CJ before he turned 18 on Twitter or what have you. I'll reply to you, but I'm not going to start a conversation.
Yeah.
Let people grow up. Point number 2, and I think a lot of your listeners know this, I have covered Black Republicans for years. I've interviewed Ben Carson one-on-one. I've interviewed Sonny Johnson. I was the one who named her the Black Sarah Palin a decade ago. Okay. I've met with Tim Scott. I've talked to Black Republicans across the spectrum. Some Black Republicans are real thorough. Most are not. I don't want your listeners to think I'm caping for Candace Owens, because I'm obviously not. But one thing I'll say is Candace is not an easy out. You can poke holes in her arguments, but you got to work to do it. But there are so many more people like CJ who got on that show. I didn't see the whole thing. I only needed that little clip, and got discombobulated by Roland and Reese because they don't even know their own arguments well enough. And that is my critique. Be a Black Republican, be a conservative. Say you oppose what most Black people vote for and think on the various political issues. It's a free country. But if you're gonna do that, especially not just as a private citizen, but as a commentator, know what you're talking about. Again, not taking up for Candace, but she's a skilled debater. She has her rap down. CJ Pearson.
But David, I would push back on that. The thing is, she doesn't talk to Black media. There's one clip of her talking to Cornel West on Laura Ingram's show, and Cornel West annihilated her. She couldn't even define socialism.
Right.
So if she went on my show, if she went on Roland Martin's show, if she spoke to Black media, see, she knows, let me not go there.
Yeah.
If Candace, if it was me, Candace, and Reese, I mean, come on now.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
So that's the stuff that she pulls.
No, look, Senator Scott, Candace Owens.
Yeah.
None of these folks could handle, a 10-round bout on the Clay Kane show, on the Roland Martin show, on Reese's podcast. Of course not.
Let's shout out Mark Lamont Hill.
Mark Lamont Hill, right? Yeah. Again, I just want to be real clear about this.
Yes.
Candace has her rap down. Okay, whatever else you think of her.
The script.
CJ, Roland didn't even need. Roland discombobulated him with one arm tied behind his back, and and while he was making himself a second cup of coffee. You got to have an understanding of your own arguments, and I think that's where that was my takeaway from this thing. The other thing that I would say is that being a Black conservative is not just saying, oh, progressives just want to call America racist. Oh, Democrats are the woke police. That's not being a conservative. Being a conservative is saying, here's my idea for this problem, here's my idea for this problem, and here's my idea for this problem. Here's how I differ with you, here's where I'll compromise with you, and here's where I won't. Otherwise, you're just talking. And I think that's where some of these folks go astray. Having said that, look, CJ, to your question, Clay, and then I'm gonna let Reese jump back in, but to your question, he's still 18. Of course, if he gets his conservative agenda down pat better as time goes on, of course, people should try and give him a chance to be taken seriously. We all say dumb stuff. We all say stuff we wish we could take back and put the toothpaste back in the tube. I certainly have done it. But now that he's 18, he's not the wonder child conservative hero anymore. He's got to step his game up.
Go ahead, Reese.
Yeah, the one thing that I find very interesting about the discussion that I was seeing, and I talked to Roland about it afterwards, and I made a comment and I said, everybody got their clips from this discussion. The reality is that we don't live in a society where most people see a 1-hour discussion. What they'll see is your little clip that you get to clip out. And I get my clips too. Don't. I'm not saying it's just other people. I get my clips too. If I have a good, okay, that was good. Well, let me go ahead and pull that out. He got his clips out. And that's the danger of the kind of soundbite society that we live in is that you can be completely intellectually outmatched, you could be outgunned, you could get annihilated in a discussion. But what he is going to take from that conversation is, for instance, him telling Jane Elliott, "You're the kind of white liberal that black people
Right.
don't like," and blah blah blah. That was a good clip. I was like,
Right.
yeah, he got a point there. You know what I'm saying?
But
She
then you
kinda,
won't hear her response. You won't
you
hear
won't hear
response.
her
You won't hear her
response. You won't hear
response.
any of our response, or he'll take something and spin it. And so this is a person, he's very savvy. He has 334, I didn't even know the guy until he started messing with Roland, but he has 333,000 followers on Twitter. I don't know what his other platforms look like, but he has a long career, and I complimented him. He has a long career ahead of him if he commits to these talking points and the lane that he wants to put himself in. He's not putting himself in an ideologically black conservative lane. He's putting himself in the black conservative punditry lane. And those are
Right.
two different things. You can be a pundit or you
Or
can
the
be an
Trump
ideologue.
lane.
The
black
Trump
Trump
lane.
lane.
Right.
Yeah.
And Trump is not a real conservative.
It's he
Right.
exactly. It's not even
Trump is a
ideology.
nationalist.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and a race baiter. Right.
And so
And
that's
here's
that. I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go
The
ahead,
one last thing
Lisa.
I'll say is that's the danger, is because people like him drive the conversation. That it's
Yeah.
whether it's talking about Kamala Harris, talking about Tim Scott, regardless of the topic, those are the people that drive a conversation. They don't have the depth. They don't have the real intellectual honesty to even answer a basic yes or no question, but they drive a conversation because they're very savvy. So will he be welcomed in 6 years from now? He's not going to be converted 6 years from now, because this is not about a sincere belief. This is about a grift. It's about a brand. And this is a profitable brand because the lane is wide open right now. You only really
Yeah.
have Candace Owens. He's the youngest guy out there doing it. And so we just have to be a little aware of what we're dealing with, regardless of his age. He's not stupid. He's very savvy.
he's
And
a
it's a
smart
lot of
guy.
CJs out
Right.
there across every end of the ideological spectrum.
Right.
Listen,
So see-
I know one personally, and I haven't talked about him publicly because he hasn't talked about me. But if he does, I have tons of receipts. He is a black gay guy, and he told me he's going to be a conservative. He was a struggling journalist. He was interviewing all over, didn't really get the kind of access that he wanted, and he told me he was going to be a conservative. He wanted to debut it on my show, and I said no. And we have been friends for years. This is
Yeah.
somebody who was in black gay circles all over New York, chilling, partying. It was bizarre, but that's what he wanted to do. Other thing that I'll say, if you're going to go on this grift, there's two bizarre things that strike me. One, I don't know if so-called black conservatives, I don't know if they realize that we as black Democrats, we're not wedded to the Democratic Party.
Right.
We don't, and like it's like when I hear them say, well, Democrats are the party that started the KKK, and I don't give a damn. Like we're not wedded to it. And I always say the largest voting bloc, it's non-voters. In 2016, only 59% of us voted at all. 8% voted Republican, 1% voted independent. That only means 50% voted Democrat. So we're not wedded to it. And Reese, David, myself, Roland, Karen Hunter, Joyanne Reed, Mark Lamont Hill, we will drag Democrats. We
All
will
day.
critique Democrats. We will chop Democrats up. And they won't do that. There'll be something like one part of the Roland Martin discussion. He said, well, I'm a fiscal conservative. You know, I don't like to see the deficit going up. Well, then I would assume you're a Bill Clinton fan, because Bill
Right.
Clinton brought the deficit down and left us with a surplus. I would have to, if you feel that way, sure. When I hear folks say, he didn't say this, but I've heard the other ones say, welfare reform, welfare. Would I assume you love Bill Clinton because he had the 96 Welfare Reform Act? Then you must be
He
down
did
for
bring up
Clinton.
welfare in Section 8. He did bring it
Oh,
up.
oh, he did?
Yeah,
Okay.
he
Well,
did.
then you must love Bill Clinton, that 96
Right.
Welfare Reform Act. So it's like there isn't even any leeway to critique your own party because Democrats do it all the time, especially us. We are
Yeah.
not, we were dragging President Barack Obama. They were all over Senator at the time, Senator Kamala Harris. You would talk about this, Reese. Like the idea that we are delusional and just fall. No, we don't, because many of us aren't even showing up to vote because we feel so disenfranchised.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I will vote. I
Right.
understand that there's no comparison between a Trump and a Biden. I'm not saying that, but it outrages me because it's so illogical. It's wrong. We are not diehard hard for these partisan politics.
Yeah.
David, go ahead, then we'll go to a break.
Okay. First of all, I'm not a Democrat. Second of all,
Right.
President Obama also brought down the deficit.
Yes, he did.
Third of all, if you're going to be a conservative, black or otherwise, and criticize Democrats for too much spending, too much social safety net, then you have to look at your own side and say, well, why do farmers get farm subsidies? Why do you have social programs to help working class white people get off of OxyContin, right? If there's too much government, then there should be too much government across the board, right? That's fine.
Why are you in our ovaries and uteruses if it's too much government?
Right.
And bedrooms.
Yes, that too. And bedrooms. And
Mm-hmm.
lastly, just to go to the substance of that point from that segment with Roland and CJ Pearson, voting is a threshold issue.
Mhm.
So even if someone is conservative, or even if they're in the middle, if one party is trying to make it harder for Black people to vote, why should Black people trust that party, even if they agree with that party on other stuff? And what Pearson did in that interview was do what a lot of Republicans do. And again, I just want to be clear. I agree with Reese. He's a smart guy. He's got a future. He's branded himself well. No disrespect. They get into the weeds of, oh, well, why can't you get an ID? And, oh, but did we have drop boxes before COVID? Stop getting into all the granular details. Either you're making it easier for Americans to exercise their right to vote, or you're making it harder for Americans to exercise your right to vote. And if you're making it harder without evidence of systemic voter fraud, and you're making it harder specifically for people who are Black or Latino or young or old or disabled, that's racist, right? That's racist. And why would people, even they're like, oh, I like their tax plan, I like their this plan, I like their that plan, I served in the military, I go to church, blah, blah, blah. But you don't want me to vote? You don't want people like me to vote? Fuck out of here. So that's my thing.
Yeah, and I also say this too, as somebody who's degreed in Black studies, voter disenfranchisement, it goes across the board. If you look at the Compromise of 1877, I know nobody cares about that, but Republicans and Democrats left the Negro problem to the South. They didn't care. I mean, FDR was a wild racist. He didn't want Black folks to benefit from the New Deal. I mean, this is not like, this is white supremacy. It isn't about the political party. It's white supremacy at work.
Yeah.
So I was just outraged. Shout out to Roland Martin, who was just masterful, who has inspired me over the years. And he was just masterful and amazing, and still understood he was 18 years old. And also too, with all due respect, like, you also gotta, when you're 18, you gotta be respectful to people who are like, 30, 40 years your senior.
Right, who've been doing it for a minute. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just be easy. Like, if I was talking to Clarence Thomas, not saying that I ever would, but if I ever interviewed him, this man, he's an elder. He's like an elder.
Elder
And
statesman.
that's a bit of respect right there. All right.
And I would have to say shout out to Dr. Carr, because I felt like,
the legend.
Yes, he's a national treasure. I said this on Twitter. I mean, and he really handled him with such grace. And I think Dr. Carr is always gracious to guests, everybody.
Yes.
And he's been very gracious to me before I got him on board with Kamala. He was, I got him on board a little bit. He was gracious towards me, even though we were on different sides. But I just thought the way that he handled him. And that's why I did resent people saying, oh, he got ganged up on by 4 people. No. First of all, he signed up for a panelist show. Did. Okay.
Right.
And
he was whining on Twitter, email me.
Yeah. And so, and I was very, very mild. And, I will definitely have dragged somebody. I've dragged people on the show a lot harder than I dragged him. I was very mild towards him. And Dr. Carr was exceedingly gracious towards him. And, Professor Elliott, they had a little back and forth, but hey, it is what it is. And Roland is rolling to everybody. He's an equal opportunity,
Absolutely.
Whatever.
Absolutely.
But he did not get bullied. He did not get picked on. It was not 4 against 1.
No.
It was 4 people expressing their opinions. If you are in the minority of the opinions, then it's going to be a little bit more heat on you. But I don't care about his opinion to be giving any heat towards him personally.
let me read a quote that Professor Jane Elliott said to CJ Pearson. I put it on my Twitter, and Mr. Roland Martin retweeted it. This was really important. She said, "You cannot solve things by saying to people, 'My mind's made up. Don't confuse me with facts.'"
That was a good
That's
one.
really what it is. Like,
Mhm.
you are getting upset because you're being confused with facts. There have been folks who've been doing this a long time before there were sound bites, a long time
Mhm.
before it was about going viral, before viral was even a thing.
Yeah.
There are folks who could, David, you could go on any network and talk policy, right? That's what you can do. And if you are confused by facts, and it's okay to be wrong. I've been wrong on
Yeah.
air before. I've been wrong. It's okay to
Right.
be wrong.
Right. I have
But
been wrong on air before. No question.
yeah, and I've gotten a tweet that wasn't right. I'm like, okay, let me correct myself. But that you got to have some kind of integrity if you're going to do this.